First, let's start with this case. I am a 20-year-old woman and have been dating my 24-year-old boyfriend for almost a year. My relationship with my 21-year-old brother is strained. We often argue, and even when I ask him simple questions, he responds with annoyance. On the other hand, I have a fairly good relationship with my mother. We have frequent conversations, though we hold very different values and beliefs. My mother is quite traditional and has strong opinions about what she calls modern women and relationships. Recently, my brother's laptop broke and he needed mine for school. I agreed to let him borrow it, and he created a separate user account to use on my laptop. What I didn't know was that he accessed my user account without permission and went through my private messages. I admit that my boyfriend and I exchange intimate and flirtatious texts, which are meant to be private. Last night, while I was playing chess online with my boyfriend, my mother confronted me about these texts. I was caught off guard, embarrassed, and unsure how to respond. She said she was disappointed in me and criticized me for being improper as a woman. She even suggested that I should get married to regain dignity. To make matters worse, she revealed that my brother had taken screenshots of the texts as proof in case I denied it. I panicked and haven't spoken to either my mother or my brother since then. This incident has deeply affected me because I struggle with issues surrounding intimacy due to traumatic experiences during my childhood. My mother's words, labeling me as dirty, triggered those feelings of shame, and I've found it difficult to recover. I've even started doubting whether I can bring myself to wish her a Merry Christmas this year. Meanwhile, my brother seems to agree with my mother and believes my behavior is inappropriate. I feel betrayed and hurt by both of them, and I'm left wondering if I overreacted by freaking out over their invasion of my privacy. Am I the one at fault for how I reacted when my mom and brother read my personal texts with my boyfriend? Let's start judging. Obviously, you're not in the wrong, but I'll take it a step further. There's something legitimately wrong with your brother. If I accidentally read spicy texts between my sister and her partner, I would divert my eyes as soon as possible. There is zero chance I'm reading through those texts and then saving them. He might be a perverted deviant. That's the most egregious part of your story. You're not in the wrong, and be careful around your brother moving forward. I'd personally go no contact. Depending on how far you want to take this, that's a crime. He invaded your privacy and took screenshots of private conversations. In the United States anyway, this violates the Electronic Communications Privacy Act. But that's going to have repercussions. They could vary from a cop just coming to your house and telling your brother to cut his nonsense out. Or they could actually arrest him. Or they could do nothing. That one's probably the most likely, to be honest. But all of them are going to suck if you're still living at your mom's house. Personally, I'd also add the hardest password you can realistically remember to both your phone and computer. Since you can't trust him on your computer, guess who isn't doing schoolwork on your computer anymore? Guess he should drag his happy butt to the library or borrow your mom's computer. Honestly, I'd start making plans to move out as soon as you can. You're not in the wrong here at all. And I suspect if you look deep enough, these people have been making your life harder for, well, probably forever. You're not in the wrong. You are 20 years old. You and your boyfriend can talk to each other however you want. Your brother is a creep on a power trip for snooping and showing your mom. Was your user account not password protected? If not, create a password now, revoke his privileges to use your laptop, and delete his user account from it. Personally, I wouldn't even give him the chance to get anything he had saved on there. Losing his data is a natural consequence of abusing your generosity in letting him use your laptop. I'm sorry you have that trauma and that your mother of all people is triggering it now. You are not at all at fault here. And having those kinds of messages with your boyfriend is normal and healthy. They are weird and controlling. It's not you. Please keep reminding yourself of that until you can get out of there and go no contact. Next up, my uncle, whom I absolutely adore, generously offered to purchase tickets for the whole family to see Wicked. The invitation included me, my husband, and our 3 daughters. In a perfect world, we'd all go and have an incredible, magical experience together. However, I don't live in a perfect world, and I've spent the past decade learning how to navigate the complexities of my family's needs through trial and error. For context, our 10-year-old daughter has Down syndrome, our 8-year-old daughter has severe autism, and our 4-year-old daughter is a textbook case of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Given their sensory sensitivities, their ages, and the nearly 3-hour runtime of the performance, I'm almost certain this outing would be a nightmare for everyone involved, especially the other paying customers, who deserve to enjoy the show without interruptions. Let's just say that our family dynamic could resemble real-life flying monkeys in this scenario. I've tried to politely decline the offer, explaining my concerns about how this situation might play out. However, my uncle and my mom are insisting that we give it a try, and they won't take no for an answer. They believe I'm being overly negative and think this could turn out to be a wonderful experience. To be clear, this isn't about me underestimating my kids. It's about fully understanding their abilities, needs, and limits in such an environment. As much as I appreciate the gesture, the thought of going fills me with dread. I worry it won't just be an unenjoyable experience for us, but it could also disrupt the show for other audience members who simply want to enjoy a magical performance. Am I wrong for standing firm and refusing such a generous gift, even though I know my uncle and mom mean well? Let's start judging. I have 3 kids on the spectrum, and I just got so mad for you. They're insisting you do this for their happiness, while having no regard for your families. It's not like so people think like, oh, it might be tough. No. With the wrong triggers that can be downright traumatic for your kids. I'm sorry they haven't taken the time to understand your children. That must hurt the worst of all. This mama thinks you're a badass for standing your ground. Happy holidays, love. You're not in the wrong. Children under 5 aren't even allowed, and I believe they actually have minimum age to be 8. At least that's what the theater is in my area. It also states that even at 8 years, it may not be suitable for all kids. You are 100% correct, and I thank you for thinking of the other patrons. I believe Wicked actually has shows for autistic or sensory-sensitive kids. It's usually only one day of their run, and this is when they request you bring kids with disabilities. You might see if this date is available and use this as reason so your family will stop giving you nonsense. Sad, you need an excuse they will listen to and not truly understand. But it may help them understand that unless they invite you to shows specifically geared towards your kids' disabilities, you will always say no thank you. Even if your children were all neurotypical, I don't think Wicked is a kids' movie. There are a lot of nuances that really make up the movie. A kid's mind, taking it all at face value, would be bored. At the least, restless kids in the theater I saw it in did not appear to get into. Especially at the finale. They had bailed on the movie and were just talking. You're not in the wrong. Take him up on just 2 tickets and a sitter. Next up, I am a 25-year-old woman and my nephew is 20. This situation happened a few weeks ago. But here's some backstory for context. My nephew and I grew up together, and I ended up taking care of him for most of my childhood and teenage years. Even though there's only a 5-year age gap between us, I had to step into a caregiver role for him. And I honestly didn't mind back then. He's family, and I care about him deeply. However, growing up, he had a habit of taking my belongings without asking, and often returned them either damaged or not at all. Whenever this happened, I was the one who got in trouble since I was older. Because he had a rough upbringing, I was expected to let him do whatever he wanted. While I understood the situation, it frustrated me because, as a teenager, I didn't have much of a choice. I had to cook for him, clean up after him, and generally act as a stand-in parent. It wasn't easy, but it's all in the past now. Fast forward to the present. I have my own apartment, but I was struggling a bit with rent. My nephew offered to move in and help cover the costs, especially since his college is only a 10-minute drive from my place. By comparison, our old neighborhood is a 40-minute drive away, so it seemed like a mutually beneficial arrangement. At first, he kept his word and contributed to the rent. However, over time, he stopped paying altogether. I reminded him multiple times that he needed to pay his share, but he always brushed it off. He insisted that since I'm his aunt and older than him, it's my responsibility to take care of him financially. That attitude frustrated me because I didn't raise him to think this way. To make matters worse, I discovered that he was engaging in questionable activities and even stealing money from my room. He refused to contribute financially in any way, and I simply couldn't afford to support both of us. I work hard to cover my expenses, and it's not fair for him to live rent-free while I shoulder all the responsibilities. I reached out to both his mom and my own mom to explain the situation, but they told me I should continue supporting him because I'm his aunt. They suggested I give him money so he could spend it as he pleased. I couldn't believe it. They wanted me to stretch myself even thinner financially just to enable his behavior. Finally, I had enough. I told him he needed to get a job or move out. Instead of taking responsibility, he threatened to kick me out of my own apartment. That was the last straw. I snapped and told him to leave immediately. I packed up his belongings, set them outside, and told him he was no longer welcome. Now, most of my family is upset with me and refuses to talk to me. They think I'm in the wrong, and only a few of my cousins are still in contact. The rest of my relatives are angry that I wouldn't continue supporting him. Thank you to everyone who shared their honest opinions and advice. I'd like to clarify a few things. I'm the youngest sibling in my family, and looking back, I understand that letting my nephew move in with me may not have been the best decision. However, I felt obligated because I raised him and believed him when he said he would help with rent. Unfortunately, he didn't keep his promise, and things spiraled out of control. I've cut ties with him and left his belongings in the lobby of my building. None of my family members want to take him in, yet they still expect me to be responsible for him. That's not going to happen. I gave up so much for that kid, and this is how he chose to repay me? It's time he learns that I won't always be there to bail him out. Lastly, I plan to file a police report regarding the stolen money. To those who were curious, yes, I am Hispanic, and that has shaped some of the family dynamics at play here. Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. You are his aunt, not his parent, nor his guardian. You are a young adult learning to navigate life yourself, and this is not your burden to bear. Your family is literally teaching your nephew to mooch off others and be entitled. I know you said you did your best when they parentified you, but you shouldn't have been put in that position to start with. If he is unable to support himself, he should move back in with his parents. If that isn't an option, he can check with the extended family harassing you and stay with them. He can also look into local assistance programs for housing if no one will take him. Under no circumstances do I think you should let him back in. He has already proven that he won't respect you and that all he wants is a free ride. The absolute audacity of thinking he can kick you out of your own apartment just blows my mind. It's hard and it sucks, but going LC or even NC in this instance would likely be a blessing for you. Focus on you, not them. Also, when they throw the "but family" card at you, remember that family is more than blood and can be chosen as well. Biologically, I have no family except my son. In reality, I have a husband, a mom, a dad, 5 aunts, 6 uncles, 3 brothers, 3 sisters, and 4 grandparents who choose me just like I choose them. I wouldn't trade them for anything. You're not in the wrong. Your nephew's behavior deserves demands, consequences. He is breaking way too many rules for you to be an idiot for kicking him out. 1, he's not paying the rent he agreed to. 2, he's doing things she's not supposed to. 3, he's stealing money from your room? He threatened to kick you out of your own apartment? Honestly, he not only deserves to be kicked out, but in fact, it would be a bad lesson for his future if you didn't. You're not in the wrong. He's a 20-year-old man. Time to get his nonsense together. You need to stop enabling him. I understand he had a tough childhood, but that is not your fault and was not your responsibility. To the family members that are calling you an idiot, I would tell them that they should help him and give him money and allow the stealing and disrespect. They are the worst. They can't ask of you what they are not willing to do. I know it will be difficult, but this is where you stand firm. You do not need a person like your nephew in your life. He brings nothing positive or helpful to your life. Next up, today my mom sent me to the grocery store 3 times. By the last trip, I was only picking up 2 packs of beans, and it was already 7 p.m. I was in a rush to get home. While I was waiting for a self-checkout station to open, a woman's ride came into the store, apparently to check on her. Shortly after, the woman came up behind me and tried to squeeze in front of me while saying, "Excuse me." I didn't move and continued waiting my turn, but then she asked me directly if she could cut in front of me, saying she needed to pick up her son from a soccer game. I thought it was reasonable to say no, so I politely explained that I only had 2 items and that it wouldn't take long for her to wait since there were 7 checkouts. That's when things took an unexpected turn. She started calling me a heartless person, accusing me of lacking the holiday spirit. She said I must want her son to suffer in the cold and complained about how people these days have no compassion. She even brought up her experience with labor and contractions, which I honestly didn't see how it related to the situation at all. I felt really uncomfortable at that point. Normally, I wouldn't mind letting someone go ahead if they asked politely and had fewer items than me. However, in this case, I didn't feel like it would make much of a difference in time since I only had 2 items. Plus, it was -5 degrees outside, and I thought it wasn't even soccer season. Now I'm left second-guessing myself. Should I have just let her go to avoid the confrontation? Was I wrong for holding my ground? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. It's reasonable to say no. You were in the queue first. She's trying to get in front. No. Her reaction was so dramatic. I'd ask where the whole Christmas spirit and contractions came from. Sounds like you might have been the straw that broke the camel's back for her and that she took the opportunity to vent. That's not your fault, though. You're not in the wrong. Her son suffering in the cold was because she decided to shop, not because you would not let her go in front of you. I bet you she doesn't have a son, lol. If she was in such a hurry, then she most certainly did not have time to go into the supermarket because the lines are unpredictable even in self-checkout. You're not in the wrong. No is a complete and perfectly acceptable answer.